Sean's not here. Austin, sorry.
Yes.
The wrong names here. Yeah,
Also
you know,
nice,
I just so people can associate the voice with the person, just to ask you to each introduce yourselves, maybe tell you how you found yourself to music.
Sure.
Okay, well, my name is Matthew. I play guitar and do a good amount of the singing in the project with Austin here. I've been playing music either in all sorts of different ways since I was like a kid, really, but been playing in the music scene here for like at least a decade, maybe 2 decades. And I don't know, just like music is like part of the fabric of just how I've been brought up, and yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
So I'm Austin. I do synthesizers, samplers, production for Aesha Minor. As far as my music background, I started making music in various forms in probably like when I was 19 or 20. And just kind of experimenting with a whole lot of different sounds and ideas, things like that. So it's kind of evolved and had many different phases throughout the past decade and a half-ish. But I've known Matthew and I met in probably 2012 or 2013, and kind of at that time, I didn't really know much, to be honest. And Matthew gave me my first interface, and so I just kind of kept plugging away at that. We worked together on various music things for a while, and then kind of over the pandemic, we got together and just started making songs, and it felt right. Like, our working relationship is excellent, and haven't stopped. So
Is that what helped form your collab for this band?
Do you mean the pandemic? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or just were you kicking around that idea before
I
that?
think we were kicking it around a little bit before that. We had kind of thrown out some ideas or little song snippets here and there, but I feel like during the pandemic, when we were both like out of work and actually had time to do a lot of experimenting and kind of hone in on a certain sound, I think that really kind of lit the fire under the project.
And also, I think that during that time in the pandemic, just being an artist, probably for all sorts of different like disciplines of artistry, it's really hard to kind of to feel like an artist, especially with like live music performance stuff. There's not those opportunities to do that and kind of involve oneself into kind of like the labor of what artistry is. And so it kind of took on a new importance to have a project that was creative, that we could consistently keep coming back to, that also kind of helped the artist in both of us and kind of maintain that kind of sense of self. At least for me, I can't actually speak.
Yeah,
for
I mean, same. Yeah.
He means same. Yeah.
I was just talking about this with somebody last night, and Heather and I interviewed, including Austin, about 200 musicians kind of through that heart of COVID, and it seemed like either people got super productive, really focused on their work, or they're like, dust on the fiddle. You know, just nothing.
Personally, I feel like it was, I guess a lot of times when I make music personally, it's kind of a more reclusive thing, so kind of having that opportunity of like, well, now I'm getting paid and I don't have to go to work. This is awesome. And I mean, obviously the pandemic is, horrible, but for that certain aspect of it, I think that was really great from the sense of when you don't have a ton of time to make music because you're living your life, you're working a job, etc., etc. It's a lot harder to really dig deep and experiment with like the gear that you have, but put it in different ways, or connect things to other pieces of equipment that don't normally work together, so to speak. And I think the pandemic kind of allowed me that time to dig deep into that. And I think also for a lot of people were exploring hobbies they just didn't have the time to do prior. And so I guess that was kind of my personal experience with it.
It's funny because you talk about it being sort of a reclusive experience, and Matthew, you talk about missing the live performance. Did you write in a different way? Like, what was the role of the audience? Did you start playing more for yourself, or what is the lasting impact of that? Because to not play in front of an audience for years, or a year,
well,
it's weird.
It is weird to kind of be missing that feedback, especially because I have a lot of experience doing kind of like live music kind of performance, and the audience is an important part of that dynamic and what it feels like to perform, and you get immediate feedback of what is maybe working for an audience, and it changes from room to room, from audience to audience. Like, one thing is going to hit for this group of people, and it's going to be a miss for this other group. But it is feedback; it's information you're getting as an artist, and you're entering into that relationship with an audience. And to your point, were we writing more for ourselves? I mean, in a way, there kind of became a purity of kind of information of we are like our own audience. And I think what happens a lot, especially me and Austin make things a lot differently than each other. And that's actually kind of important, I think, because I listen to what he does with a much different kind of perspective than what he listens to what he does. And vice versa. So the way I hear something, he hears it much differently. And so there is a little bit of an audience factor, but the audience is like each other. And it's kind of a more intimate audience relationship, performing and audience, because they're both also happening at the same time. Does that answer the question?
It does, because even your answer to the previous question, each of your different answers, I'm like, this is a yin and yang situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very much that. Like, a lot of times when we're creating a song, I'll be like, Matthew, do you want me to loop the chorus? And then I'll loop what I think the chorus is, and it won't be at all what he's thinking the chorus.
Why are you looping the bridge?
So it's I think that, those type of dynamics, I feel really grateful that this one works so well, because I can see a lot of ways in which it would absolutely not work, if that makes sense, creating in such different ways. But it is truly like a yin and yang type of relationship.
Well, and the trust and the respect have to be high.
Absolutely.
Going at all ways
especially because it is such a stark difference. And so, in a way, I have to, be able to trust, Austin's ear for something that I might not be able to hear yet. And then, as we're working through it, instead of it just being I'm deciding it's this way and I don't like what it's got to be okay, you hear it this way, I'm going to trust that, let's go and work on that for a couple hours. And sometimes it works out really great, and then we go to places neither of us would necessarily go.
And I think one of the things too is that I feel like a lot of times when we're making stuff, we'll both have opinions that might not be the same opinion, but I feel like we tend to side with whoever has a really strong opinion about something. If Matthew's got a really strong opinion that it should go a way that I'm not necessarily agreeing with, I'll be like, well, he feels really strongly about it and I trust his judgment, so let's explore that avenue. And then kind of vice versa.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, to have that trust level is amazing. Should we play one of your songs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Should we start with Iron Hand?
Yeah, let's start with Iron Hand.
Yeah.
Iron Hand by Aesha Minor on WMCN.
Cool. Sweet.
Now here's people listening on the radio or online right now won't hear us, but we're still recording there.
Right.
Oh, right,
so
yes.
You're recording on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's actually we talk both of you, so that's I like to just
Right.
You can F-bomb, do all that, but you don't want to say something mean about someone you didn't
No.
mean to say.
Yeah.
Whip off our shirts.
I don't know, it might get us more viewers.
Okay,
You know.
Little preview there.
If you want, you can trade chairs so it doesn't look like I'm like super tall.
No, it's good. It makes me look really small.
That would be my answer. And could you put on a down jacket too?
I don't know.
Are you working on your own stuff now too? Like from doing that too, I wonder if you have little glimpses of each other in your head, like, ooh, Matthew would like that, or Austin would probably hear this or something if it bleeds into that a little bit.
You mean like on our own, like individuals?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always kind of been that. Actually, I think that's kind of, in a way, how one of the reasons we decided to do this project together. Because I would work on, I'd have like my solo stuff, and I would hit Matthew up for a lot of things, from like guitar to just like his
like
two
listening.
cents.
We just like listen to each other's stuff and be like, oh, like this is what I would do, or this is what I think could happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, well, maybe we should just do
it.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of almost are anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, let me play this guitar part on the thing you have, and then it's like, oh, well, why don't we just owies?
Yeah. Name it. Name it.
Yeah.
I was,
Yes,
when I was going through the, actually it's probably something I'll tell you later.
Yeah, you might not.
Just like, well, when I was going through one of our songs the other day to get stems for a live track, I realized on the master that one of like the chord blocks is like slightly off, and
Like
timing wise,
Oh.
and it's but like with everything stacked on top, you can't really notice it, but like digging into it, I'm like,
Oh no.
oh, all right. Well, it passed our
Happy.
smell test, so.
Cool.
It's like this mist stitch on the sweater.
Yeah.
You know, it's handmade.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, when you're plugging in other stuff, that gives you the different, that's just another layer of that,
That's
right?
another layer.
Yeah.
It's intentional to make it complex, to cause the listener to think.
And to hate it.
Think about how much they hate it.
No.
It's funny. It's like, that dog yawning in the background is just what we were going for.
Well, there's so many times where we're recording Matthew doing vocals, and at the end of the vocal track, he'll be like, "Yep, I think that was it, or that's good." And for whatever reason, I'll like just keep that whole vocal track, and while we're like editing and mixing and stuff. And there's been a couple times I've forgotten to cut that little bit off at the end.
Yep, that's good.
And then at the end I'm like, no, we did that intentionally to
Yeah,
give you the vibe of being in the studio.
Yeah, it's a feature. Believe me, it's a feature.
Yeah.
Got like 30 seconds.
Okay. Iron Hand by Aesha Minor, who we have in studio.
Thank you. Yes, we are here.
Yeah, that is a lovely song. I really, can you tell us a little bit more about it? The inspiration, the
Yeah, kick this
perspiration.
one off,
Well, okay. It's a song that's kind of grounded in a place that is really struggling with, I think, a faith relationship. I mean, the lyric in the chorus is raising an iron hand to Jesus and pulling him down. And it's talking about kind of the hardships that lead to kind of that questioning. I was raised in an odd like religious kind of gumbo of things. My dad was Lutheran, my mom was like a Catholic, but also was a Buddhist priest. So there's like a lot of different.
I have a good friend who was a Buddhist monk for 7 years in Japan. We both grew up in Catholic schools.
Right.
I think
yes,
there are some.
That's a very common path, actually.
Yeah.
That's very true. I've had a lot of different experiences, I suppose, in different kind of faith communities and things like that. And I've also experienced some difficult things that have led to kind of questioning certain things that were necessarily taken for granted or taken for truth as a young person. And then as you grow up and you become more critical and sometimes cynical in some ways about what some of that looks like. And I think that's, if I had to boil down what this song is, it is really kind of seated in that kind of space of taking it, like having that critical feeling and what it feels like to also kind of be questioning that base and these experiences that have led to that. Yes, that's what I'd say.
Same. This was one of the tracks that I believe Matthew, this is one of the first ones we really jumped into, and I believe Matthew had most of the lyrics and the chords kind of already going at the time, and so this one I took more of the like approach of let's blow this up into like a bigger song, kind of capture the idea of it. So the original, with the song, it starts out with kind of the synth pads and stuff. That was originally guitar that I had swapped out, and then we let the guitar come in with that part for the second verse. And I think with that song, like, sonically, things just came together. There was not a whole lot of like struggle, I guess, to find the right sounds.
No messing around with things.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like some tinkering and whatnot, but there's some songs that you just feel like you're beating your head against a wall trying to break through.
Yeah.
And this one felt really, I think the ones that tend to flow like this song ultimately result in a better, more cohesive song. But yeah, I think this was one. It was one of the first songs we did, but I think it was the first song for me that I was kind of like, wow, okay, there's something here. Let's keep going. Let's really kick it into overdrive.
I was going to say, you can really hear with your voice included, it's really smooth and airy and light, but you can also have all the sonic layers of how complex you two and talented you are, but it just is like smooth, so beautiful.
And one of the things that I like to do, or that I kind of in the back of my head when I'm making a song and how I know, or how I feel that it's like either done or whatnot, if I can like see a song and it doesn't feel, the sections don't feel square to me, where like one section clearly stops, one section clearly starts, that to me, if it feels fluid, if it doesn't feel like it was, if I can see
like when you just like have this is a part, this is another part.
And I feel like a lot of times that's something I struggle with when programming like drum machines, because a lot of times it is kind of like, if a lot of songs with drum machine will have one, maybe two different variations on it, and it's like, here's the verse, here's the chorus. So having to go in and kind of cut up the audio to create fills with it to make it seem more organic, that's always something that I'm striving to do.
It's fun to see. I'm going to go on a limb and say that the inspiration for the song is maybe more personal to Matthew.
Yes.
But to see how then, Austin, you you honor that, and as you were speaking about before, that passion, and
Yeah.
go with this passion, you know, and it just makes it so much better. I mean, well, I don't know what it sounds like, but it, you know, that collaboration is.
No, I agree, and it's like this is a great example of a song where, like, I did have a lot of the pieces, but working with Austin made it like I do think that he was servicing the song with what he was intending to do and how he executed it, and it came out better because like these two minds are kind of working towards this one goal of what the song is. And yes, it is kind of like more grounded in my like lived experience, but to have somebody else be able to recognize that and see it and then also synthesize what that means through their lens is like a very valuable part of this working relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the inspiration maybe Matthew's, but the creation is belongs to both of you.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
100.
I want to give you both an opportunity to talk about sort of the work that you do separately. And what my real question, once you talk a little bit about that, is how do you decide what to do on your own and what to bring to the table together?
Well, I do work with some other groups in my own project sometimes, and kind of that comes in and out of focus depending on what's happening. What is also really valuable, I find that it can be difficult when I'm working by myself to feel motivated sometimes to complete something, because if it is just me and I'm like, I can get really, get neurotic and depressed and stuff, and so it's really easy for me to be like, well, who cares if Matthew puts something out? And it's like easy to talk myself into that kind of headspace, and like not doing it, and having somebody else to work with actually like creates a sense of responsibility towards not just myself but the other person and the project, and I actually find that quite valuable. But I also do have songs that are sometimes not the right fit, and sometimes it is just that it's like it's so far written, like it's so ingrained in what I'm doing that it doesn't, like, having another voice or thing on it doesn't make like aesthetic sense. And sometimes it's just like I brought songs to the table that were just like this, for whatever reason. It's not good or bad. It's just like this isn't what we're doing, and like it's hard to maybe articulate why that is, but there is like a sense of like, yeah. Sometimes it takes a while to get there to be like, you know what, this isn't like. There's kind of like like an undefined thing that we are doing that's hard for us, like, to maybe for us to define it, but sometimes it's like I know when I'm not hearing it or when I am hearing it, sort of thing.
Absolutely. So for my for my project YYY, which is my solo stuff, I think that's definitely more of, since Aesha Minor is kind of a half and half project, YYY stuff is more so my chance to get vocal, I guess. I do like a tiny bit of vocals with Aesha Minor, but I mainly let Matthew do that because I think he's got like a beautiful voice that goes over what we do pretty well.
Stop.
And but with my stuff, I think it's definitely more of a I kind of see these albums that I craft myself as like mountains to climb, and more like a, doing it by myself is really fulfilling to me. I'm kind of deep in my next solo record right now, as well as doing Aesha Minor, and I find it actually, I know a lot of artists don't like to do two things simultaneously, but I find it actually really helpful, because doing stuff by yourself, for me it's a lot slower, and because a lot of these blocks you kind of have to get through yourself and figure out ways around it and hold yourself accountable, and it's definitely more of like a marathon than a sprint, so to speak. But then I think a lot of the times when you get through these blocks or hurdles yourself, I think I've grown a lot more as an artist by doing that. but then also at the same time, I also want to work on the Aesha minor stuff at the same time, because that like working with Matthew, there's constantly an influx of ideas and perspective that is not just mine, that that we can go toward. And I feel like with my solo stuff, it definitely has a particular sound. So if I'm just messing around creating sound tracks or whatever, a lot of times it can be pretty easy for me to figure out, like, okay, this sounds like an Aesha minor thing, or this sounds like a YYY thing. Or a lot of times the projects will be at different stages. So I guess where I'm at with the YYY record is not necessarily creating new songs from the ground up, but taking kind of these half songs I already have and completing them. So if I'm creating something new, it's not really going to be with the lens of maybe this is a YYY thing. It's going to be more of an Aesha minor thing. So that's, yeah, I guess that's kind of that in a nutshell.
That's a nutshell.
Help, I'm in a nutshell.
It makes sense because you think about having a running buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and there are times when I say running buddy. Heather is an amazing runner.
Mm-hmm.
I have a walking buddy, you know. but there are times where like I just want to do this alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
For whatever, because you want to do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And having a running buddy does make you do it.
It does.
Yeah.
The accountability.
That is the accountability,
that
absolutely.
helps me so much. It's such a huge tool for me,
Yeah.
particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then also just like it is a lot like when I'm working on my own stuff, you run into like a point where you're like you run into like this is the problem, and you have to push through it.
Yeah.
When you have another person there that can have ideas that aren't yours, it really
So
diffuses
easy.
the problem. It makes it so much
It
easier
really
because
does.
like you run out of ideas because you know you have. If you're like me, you have my dumb brain.
Well, I mean, it's like I was gonna say, we can crank out like good songs pretty quickly in comparison to doing it by ourselves. Like, I mean, you lock us in a room for 2 weeks and we could write a record.
Please don't.
Wow.
Challenge
But if you-
accepted.
but if
Come
you
into the
have
closet.
Yeah. And that reminded me of something I was going to say, but I can't remember what it is.
That you don't want to be locked in a room.
Help.
Well, it's so funny because there's the old saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with
Yes.
others. But it's kind of the
Yeah.
you know, with music apparently it's a little different. If you can go quicker with your
Mm-hmm.
But also that is the sign of a great collaboration, a great partnership.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are other people who are like, nope.
Yeah. The indecision and kind of different. I think honestly, a lot of collaboration boils down to respect and having knowing who you're collaborating with and having respect for their opinion is absolutely key, because that will get you through almost any hurdle in songwriting.
Totally. And like self-awareness, like knowing I have strengths, but I also have weaknesses. And,
Yes.
and kind of like identifying what those are. Because a lot of my weaknesses are his strengths. So like it's
vice
really
versa.
good for me to know
It's
that
very
instead
clear,
of me like confusing my weakness for a strength and being like, I have this idea and we're going to do that. And then it's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not.
Well, and I
Right,
think
I know I'm
also
right.
just
Yeah.
being open about like there's certain things I'm not great at, but I'm not trying to like hide that, or we both kind of recognize, even, you know, mainly without even saying like what our individual weaknesses are. It's just easier like Matt. I think Matthew's a better singer than I am, so I'm like, well, looks like you're singing.
Get out there, champion.
That's good though. Gives you a chance
I
to do
know.
what you want
I
to do.
like that you're not pointing out the weaknesses in each other.
Yeah.
You're just stepping up. So it's a
Yes,
beautiful
and I think
relationship.
framing that way is also important. Like instead of like we probably are pretty aware of what some of our weaknesses are, but instead of looking at the other person and kind of defining what those are, we're looking at what the situation requires and how my strengths might benefit the situation.
Because
And, yeah.
that's also, it's not like a cookie cutter thing where we're not locking each other into, well, Matthew's just doing these roles.
Yeah,
If
right.
Matthew has an idea on the synthesizer, he'll crank it out.
Yeah.
And if I have like a vocal idea, I'll crank that out. And so kind of that we have like loose roles, but not really confined to them. I think that's a really big thing for us as well.
That's great. Should we play another song?
Yeah. Can we do Seed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we go, Seed by Aesha Minor. Okay, I have to run down the hall.
Okay,
I
run.
swear to God,
Run, run, run.
if the door's still locked, I'll just come right back and cry.
Oh, this Oh, yeah. Bring your phone.
No, it's recording.
Oh, shit. Don't then. I was like, I love the lyrics.
Remember this song?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I love how your voice is so like light and airy, like I said before, but the lyrics, you're kind of floating with it. And all of a sudden I'm like listening. I was like, it's a little heavier too on
Yeah.
some of it, but it's so it's so beautiful. And then the complexity of your layering. I'm just like, what is impressive.
Well, thank you. That's
Yeah.
very kind. I
Yeah,
appreciate
well,
that.
it's true.
This is the chorus that had that timing thing. Try to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Like the synth block chords.
I can't hear it, but when I solo the tracks, for this part, one of the OP1's pads was actually like a quarter bar early.
Weird. Okay, because it doesn't sound.
It doesn't, no, because I have it filtered pretty heavily on the recorded version, but...
Okay, well, interesting. I would have never ever guessed that, but that's...
I wouldn't have either if I hadn't had to like dig
Go
back
through
in.
all of
yeah.
it. You're doing an autopsy on the song.
Yeah, right. Dissecting. What would be your favorite venue to play this particular?
This album?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I feel like sometimes the venue can really.
It can.
Yeah.
I guess.
Or space too.
Yeah. I guess I can only really speak from venues we actually have played this at. I liked Green Room. I thought Green Room sounded good. Ice House.
Yeah, Green Room is nice because it also has like a pretty... We can get a little bit clustered with how much stuff we have going on stage. So like small stages aren't always like our best friend.
Yeah.
Because you have like a pretty sizable rig with all of the things you have. And that takes up... like, to have space to be able to move is nice. And you can take it for granted when you don't
Yeah, it
need
can
all that
throw
space.
you off.
Yeah, but then it's just like, oh wow, like feeling like constrained can really feel tough.
Can affect.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that. My air guitar.
You're getting better at it. We're just...
Did it work out in the
Yeah.
bathroom? Cool.
And I running back. I'm like, thank God it's not punk music. I would have had 27 seconds.
That's 8 tracks off of the record.
You never hear me say, thank God it's not punk. But today I was like, okay, good.
It's gonna be done.
Okay. Seed by Aesha Minor, who we have in studio.
Hello.
Hello. Tell us about this song. Your answer was so good the last time. What is the inspiration of this one? It was really intriguing to me, but yeah.
Well, do you want to start with the lyrics first? Or
Start wherever you like, my guy.
So the kind of the main chords of the chorus, I had taken a progression from a previous track I had made a long time ago that I never released, never really finished. But it was on the synthesizer. I set like the individual note to play, like if I set it on a C, I set it to play C, but then also the major third out from it, so like a C and an E. And so I was just kind of finger picking around and kind of got this sequence going that has a few notes that are outside of the key, but I thought it sounded really cool, and I was like, we should bring that over from this project into here, and then had like an interesting idea for the drums on the chorus part too. And there's a few times in the song where Matthew's playing guitar and it sounds like it's kind of in reverse. What I essentially did is wrote out his guitar part in MIDI, reversed it, and then had that go through a synthesizer. So the synthesizer played it in reverse, and then I reversed that again so it's in line with the guitar, but it's all in reverse. So it kind of gives it that like a little warbly feeling to it.
Tipsy.
Yeah.
I mean, dreamy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as far as like content of what the song is about, as we talked about, I sometimes have like depression or things like that. This song is basically about kind of the will to change and what change looks like, and like the chorus is pretty just straightforward about what change looks like. It's like starting where you are and then crawling through the dark, and then this change might happen, but it's not guaranteed. Like, it might happen. It might take, it might not take. And that's kind of what it can feel like. Like, sometimes, like, especially, like, with depression and things like that. It feels like some days, I have it. I got it figured out. Like, today I can send an email. You know, that's some
I put my shoes on.
Yes, right. And some of those feel like wins sometimes. And sometimes it feels like you can, like, I could always do this. This is easy. But there's also days where that is not the case, and it's also really frustrating to go through kind of that cycle of like feeling like you made progress, you've done this, like I am sending emails like a champion, I'm going on walks, I'm taking my dog on walks, I'm taking care of myself, I'm working out, I'm doing this, and then, you know, a week later, maybe for no reason, it's such a labor to get out of bed or do anything, and that just already is hard just because of what that experience is like. But it's also frustrating even just in a meta way of just feeling the weight of like feeling like you have made progress but it's all gone, and kind of things like that, and that unto itself is its own frustration.
So yeah, the song's basically about sending emails.
I got that. Well, it's funny because you think progress is going to be linear, and it's just it never is.
No, it never is.
You know,
and there's an expectation. Yeah, there's a false expectation that it is, and we even, I think, just culturally kind of mythologize that, and we think that is what it looks like, or we say that's what it looks like, but it's not really what it's like.
Yeah, and to everyone listening out there, the glow up is not linear. So.
No, it's you know, it's comforting for me to hear that in the song.
Yeah.
For me to hear that, I mean, and I love that more people are singing about things like that, because then you're like, well, I didn't put my shoes on, but I sent 2 emails, and that's one more than that.
Yeah. Like, that sucks. It's like there's probably some people out there like, he does suck.
Yeah.
He really does.
Well, and it's not. It's not the compare and despair, but sometimes you just want to know that there are people who are where you are.
Oh no, absolutely.
You know,
it's helpful to know that for sure. And I mean, if that's the service this song is providing for somebody, I think that's wonderful, and like that'd be great. Yeah, I can only speak from my experience of what it's like, and it is also helpful to hear other artists who also experience that sort of thing talk about it candidly, or sing about it, or paint about it, or you know, like whatever the medium is, to make it feel like a little bit more reasonable that the progress isn't looking like what I want it to. The changes that I have implemented are not taking the way that I want them to. I'm not as successful at those all the time, and it becomes easier when other people are expressing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think the songs are Heather, you said it earlier, sonically smooth. And they're smooth, and there's a comfort to it. There's a dream quality, but there's just really, it's like a blanket, wrapping you up. You feel a little
Nice.
Yeah, you're in a nice place when you listen to
blanket.
it. Yeah. Yes.
It's also heated.
Heated.
Hypoallergenic too.
Oh, gosh.
It's all the things. It's all things. I'm a little bit looking at the old clock at the wall to see.
right.
Do we want to play another song?
I would
Now?
love to
Yeah.
play another song.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
I'm
Control.
going to remind folks that you're listening to Mostly Minnesota Music on WMCN 91.7 FM. We have Aesha Minor in studio, and we are going to play
Control.
Control.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're not. There we go.
Speaking of compare and despair, I heard like a minute and a half of silence on the current the other day. That's when we're like, those people are getting paid.
You're just like us.
I
Exactly.
know.
I think it was even
I
like
do,
NPR,
yeah.
and I'm like, no, NPR, they're getting, I'm like, well, that's fair. They're coming from Gaza.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
no
yeah,
shade
yeah, for
there,
sure.
but
Yeah.
the current, they're just minute.
No, I have
Yeah.
felt the same when I've heard
Well, and
that.
the longer we do this, you're like, don't just
Yeah.
let it be. You
Yeah.
know, just let it be the most silent, longest 7 seconds.
Yeah.
You know.
Even though
Step
it feels like 7 hours.
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure from that side of things.
Yeah.
When you're
And
like in
then-
charge of the stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
Then if you have long periods of silence, you can come back and be like, and that was by John Cage.
Exactly. Little known fact: he spent a lot of his youth in Minnesota, which is why we can play him. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh. Yeah, I'm looking at So What for You. Will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we get another song in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll ask you a little about this and then upcoming shows and then someone else comes in at 2. So
Okay.
we're going to try to respect that.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, cool. We just got the confirmation on the other show too.
Oh, sweet.
It's very good.
Triple-
Okay, cool.
All right, so this is going to be January 31st.
Yes, okay.
With Yellow Ostrich.
Ooh, that's a good pairing.
Ice House.
Yes, okay.
Nice.
What did you say? January what?
January 31st
Okay.
at Ice House
Ice House.
with Yellow Ostrich.
That's a good location for your music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that stage.
Classy.
It is classy.
Yeah. Classy like a piano bar.
I like that.
Where else?
I love my phone. So many games. A medieval game.
This is story.
I'll probably have to look at my phone while I rattle off these.
That's
No,
fun.
that's perfect.
My brain don't work.
You guys do a good job talking about what this music's about and the songs are about.
Yeah,
I wouldn't ask them all the time, except you always.
Yeah.
Your answers are so good.
I know.
I mean,
That's
some
interesting,
some are
actually.
super,
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And
Yeah.
thank you for having us. This is
Yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is fun.
Yeah, super fun.
I like that part.
Slow down everything.
I do.
It's a cool part.
I do like
He's the
it.
mastermind with that.
Yeah, I do.
That's one of those things when you do it and you play it back and you just like jump out of your chair.
Yeah.
That's
I feel like it's easily fun to play it and for the listener. Like it's both. Like
Oh,
some
yeah.
music is more for the musicians, maybe,
Sure, yeah,
and some more for the audience, and this gives it both.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean. Some
Yeah.
music is-
I mean, and all
Yeah,
is
yeah.
good, but you get it. You get both. Yep.
Control by Aesha Minor, who we have in studio.
Hi.
Oh, yes. Tell us the story about this one. The stories are so interesting.
Okay, well, I'll kick this one off with just some content stuff. This song is actually, well, it's about my wife, more or less. This is about when we were starting to date, and there was kind of like this expectation that, like, maybe this, I don't know, when you're dating people, you don't necessarily think, like, this is gonna be the rest of our lives, and that's a pretty normal thing. I think they were both coming from a space of, like, yes, we're dating people, but we're both having this feeling of, like, but, like, there's something important happening here. And that's kind of what this song is about. Yeah, it's about not, like, maintaining control. Like, I'm supposed to not want this, but I do, is one of the lyrics. And that is about, like, I'm not supposed to want, like, this as hard as I'm wanting. Like, not wanting, like, if that makes sense.
It's a really interesting perspective on
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think that's also, it just comes from a space of, like, dating can be a little bit transient and weird sometimes, and you can get into a mind space of kind of, like, things can be just a little thin sometimes and not necessarily super meaningful, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. There could be very fun times had. I've had fun times in those kinds of relationships. People do.
Right.
But also, if you're kind of in that cycle of things, there's expectations of, like, maybe how things will or won't go and how far things can be taken, and this song's kind of an expression of, like, I can't control myself, this is pretty great. But it's also, like, so weird because it's, like, it sounds really dark, like, in the verses especially.
Yeah.
But, like, the lyrics are kind of, like, antithetical to that. It's like all my life I prayed for you. Like, it's like this, it's almost like this kind of monotone, weird, dissonant, like, chanty thing going on, which I think makes for a very interesting and kind of layered feeling about what the song is. It's not just a very, like, surface level, like, I love my wife.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's interesting. You know, we hear some I love my wife songs, and then we hear a lot of I love that person and they didn't love me. You know, unrequited.
Right, yeah.
You just
For
hear
sure,
a lot more
unrequited
lyrics
love,
about
right,
that
for
than something like this, which is a refreshing,
Yeah.
like,
Right on, yes.
yeah, it somehow it worked despite
Despite
all the outside controls.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I just realized when I was talking about Seed earlier.
You were talking about this.
I was talking about
thought
this,
so.
the
I
chord
thought
progression.
No, as I was listening to it, I was like, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's
no,
so
so
funny.
that
makes more sense now.
yeah, that chord
Yeah, it makes
progression.
a lot more sense. I was like, I don't know what
We
he's
played it
talking
cool.
Yeah, so the song's about a good friend of mine's wife. No, but when so yeah, everything from that previous thing with the chord progression, all that's this song. When we're initially kind of diving into this, at first I was kind of on the fence about how big the verses were sounding, like, instrumentally, because it kind of has this, like, heavy bass, and given the subject matter, I'm like, does this necessarily fit? And after sitting with it a while, I'm like, maybe part of me that is questioning whether or not it fits is because of everything I've heard in the past has had the instrumentation be completely different with this type of song, and I'm just not used to it. And then after a while, it kind of grew on me, and I really started to enjoy it. And then when we were going into, like, the chorus part, Matthew laid down this really awesome bass line for it that, and I kind of came up with this drum pattern right on the spot, and it just kind of gave it this like fluid momentum that absolutely loved. And then we didn't really know how to end the song, and
You did
so
a good
like
job.
there's always like this giant like bag of stuff that I've always wanted to try with songs that 99% of the time it doesn't work, but I always like to throw it in there just to see if it does.
Yep.
And I'm like, what if we slow everything down? And it like, I'm like, wait, this actually kind of works. And so then I got some audio snippets of make it sound like a record was like someone was turning it on or skipping or something like that, and then it goes into the end, and I'm like, yeah, this works. This is good. I like this.
So, as you started to talk about it, and you're having a hard time because this is what you were thinking, and things have been done before.
Yeah.
And Austin, you're talking about the music that way.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew, you're talking about the content that
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even realize that.
We could have just swapped out pronouns or
Yeah.
the determiners there and been the same thing. Which is that is how
interesting, yeah.
matched
Yeah.
you are.
I know.
Like somehow you've internalized enough of the content that.
Well, I think just ingrained in both of us, it like we do have a heavy pop sensibility, but there's also this like need to like, okay, we can do this, but we need to like kind of not necessarily intentionally make it weird, but like make a pop song that's got a lot of dissonance or a lot of unusual chords, but make it so undeniable that the audience listening to it is not like, oh, what is that going on? You kind of like sneak it in there that like they think they're listening to pop. And it's like, kind of pet sounds the whole thing.
Awesome. It's awesome. Have you guys got any shows coming up?
We do actually.
Years
So next shows will be in 2024. January 31st at Ice House, we're playing with Yellow Ostrich, part of their monthly residency there, so super excited about that. And then February 18th, we're playing at the Green Room with Annie, Rosie, and Eleanor Liz Grant.
Awesome.
No, awesome.
Putting those on our calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you
a
so
pleasure.
much. Yeah,
been a
this
pleasure.
it's been so interesting to hear the story behind the story and just watching the two of you just work together in conversation. It's very you're well suited, well matched.
Well, thank you so
and
much.
it's a great result. So, and we're gonna go back to some music about food.
No more
Well, there's
songs
no
about my life.
fluidity there. No
Yeah,
smooth
enough songs
there.
about Matthew's wife.
Here we go.
She might be a cutie pie. We
Yeah,
gotta
exactly.
that works. But what are we actually gonna
We
hear?
are listening to our Tina Shaleski with Honey Baby Sweetie.
Honey Baby Sweetie.
There
That
you
is
go.
a good
It
transition.
It works. It
It
works.
works.
Perfect.
Very rad.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun to hear how